Beignet in French cuisine. Beignet. Fratelli when made with chestnut flour in Corsica, and puff puff from Senegal, and Berliner doughnuts are all fried yeast dough. Beignet sounds so much better in French, doesn't it, than fried yeast dough. Now, sourdough is all the rage because it's good for your digestive system in terms of gluten. It's full of air holes, so good for diabetics. Better, not good. Rye bread is what's good for diabetics, partly because it doesn't have much of what we normally eat for bread in it. There's a lot of husk in it if you get the right flour. Rye bread's low in sugars, but it can be a bit heavy and dominating in flavour. But we're baking today, and it's the simplest baking possible. It's easier than making concrete, and some really simple people do that. We're at one of Le Corbusier's houses near Paris, not far from those central Paris landmarks that you know so well. Le Corbusier, borderline brutalism, use of concrete to some people, but I dare you to turn this down as a house. Some of you may say, in mature gardens, any house looks beautiful. It's in situ concrete. It's poured in formers, shuttering. The Beignet that we're making are sort of a cast-off from the sourdough starter. Why and who makes a rye bread sourdough starter? Mix? Yes, a mix with other whole grain flours. We're trying to make sesame crisp breads. Råbrød is Danish for rye bread. Rye vita is the most widely known name for crisp bread. Knækkebrød is the proper Scandinavian word for crisp bread. Knækkebrød are dry, husky wafers that keep you regular, and in this comparison would be a bit like precast concrete. But with sourdough, the starter has to be magnified at regular intervals. It needs to be doubled and then doubled again day after day. So you really don't need a big mix to start off with at all, because after 2 weeks, it's not at its best. Rye bread mix sourdough pancakes I find quite effective as well. So discard the mixer, get out a spoon and mix your own ratios. 3 to 1 to 1, sand to lime to cement with judicious amounts of water. With tied steel bar reinforcement is what Le Corbusier used. Corb, to those of us who know him well, but not as well as Jane Drew, my old architecture teacher. I don't know why the salt that you put in the mix doesn't kill off the yeast. It just doesn't. We're not putting in any yeast, but yeast is just present in those little husks and grains. Every little flake of flour has a bit of yeast clinging to it. But the yeast on your fingers is most likely to be detrimental, so keep them away. And don't double dip your spoon. It's like getting mud in your concrete. Just leave it by a radiator. Covered, but doesn't need to be airtight. A day or 2 days until something starts happening, starts rising, through the side of the container, you can see the air bubbles forming of that sourdough. Add a little pour of water to make it total slop, and then double the same amount of flour again. Add in and stir it all up. Leave that near a radiator for another day, and then double it the next day. You can take your Beignet or your fratelli or your pancakes from these doublings at any time you like. You don't really have to double it, but it does help keep your ratios of the other type of flour that you're using as well as the rye bread consistent. Sourdough that you buy from a shop varies hugely, doesn't it? And that's because they're trying to sell more of it, make it appealing, not make it too weird for the consumer. But we're taking the modernist, brutalist approach to baking to health. Has anyone ever used that phrase before? Taking the brutalist baking to health approach. Because if you're trying to avoid becoming a diabetic or trying to lose weight, you need to cut out carbohydrates with sugars. So that means no rice, no potatoes, no bread. Anything under 10 grams per 100 grams on the nutritional information on the back, you won't be eating it. So you can eat 85% chocolate, but not 75% chocolate. You will be allowing yourself no treats beyond 10 grams per 100 grams. Most of your diet, you're trying to keep under 1 gram of sugar per 100 grams. This cosmic slop that we're making today goes a good way to helping you lose weight, but you need to get used to snacking on nuts, mixed nuts, substituting those carbohydrates for several types of beans that you usually get in several different cans, along with lentils and pulses, and of course lots of green vegetables. Root vegetables, carrots seem to be more or less okay on the sugars, and parsnips, not too bad. But that's it in a nutcase. Couldn't be simpler, but you'll know. More likely to do your own baking of this type than you are to build your own house out of reinforced concrete. Hey, go on then. Pick up your phone and call that illegal electric bike courier to bring you your takeaway sugar. And leave yourself to rise next to your radiator into obesity, and then start cleaning. I've got slow metabolism, or I was born this way. Psyllium. You saw me sprinkling the psyllium just a tiny little bit on the mix before I made the pancakes. It's a binding thing. It's psyllium. You saw me sprinkling the psyllium just a tiny little bit on the mix before I made the pancakes. It's a binding thing. It's from a shrubby herb. Plantago ovata. Now, psyllium, not to be confused with psilocybin, is more commonly known in Britain and Europe as ispagula. To be honest, I've never heard of either, until my mum put me onto it. Of course, in pancakes you can use eggs more commonly as the binding agent, but I don't think the pancakes are going to last quite so long. And you can make a batch and keep it in the fridge using this psyllium ispicula, slightly dodgy looking powder. It really does bind with hardly any, so it's a bit difficult to see how it can be used as a bulking agent by manufacturers, and it can help keep you regular again, when you would think a binding agent would do the exact opposite of helping you poo. I know to many, and to me to a certain extent, I'm presenting a whole new nutritional approach. But it's not really. To some of you, perhaps rice is like your cultural religion. You can get noodles and rice, reconstituted rice with all the starch sugars taken out of it, but it's expensive in small packages. For my next trick, my next experiment of myself for you, is Sourdough Rye bread pasta lasagna sheets. Seems feasible. I could enjoy getting one of those windy kitchen machines.